Socialism. Socialism, a stepchild of communism, is another endeavor to bring the state closer to the needs of the people. It substitutes the state for the king and attempts to control society for the benefit of society. Like all the others, socialism is another failed attempt by man to govern himself. Absolute power corrupts absolutely, and the state loses its concern for the individual as it becomes more obsessed with its own power. This leads us to our final look at man's attempt to govern himself. Democracy. Democracy has its roots in the writings of the Greeks and is viewed by many people, even those in the Western religions, as the perfect government. Plato called it the fairest of constitutions, but did so only reluctantly because he saw weaknesses within democracy that would lead to its downfall. The rule of the people, by the people, and for the people is a fine idea. It is man's attempt to get further away from despotism and tyrannical rule. Democracy as a principle is man's reaction to all the other forms of government such as feudalism, dictatorship, communism, and socialism. A close study of the roots of Western democracy will reveal that it was a reaction and rebellion against a divine choice or feudal system of governing called a kingdom. In reality, America was built on rebellion against a kingdom. The founders and framers of the American concept of governing championed the cause of democracy and adopted the Greek ideas and refined them to accommodate their aspirations. America rejected a kingdom. America's dream and guiding principles were independence, self-determination, and individuality. But while these principles serve as the bedrock of Western democracy, they remain contrary to the kingdom principles. Americans have never understood the potential power of a king and his kingdom because they were exposed to corrupt kings. Out of that fear they created a system of rule that would limit the power of a single man. The system of checks and balances was installed to guard against power and authority being consolidated into the hand of one individual. This fear of totalitarianism and dictatorship is the engine that drives the motor of Western democracy, and unstably so. In the absence of the original perfect and ideal kingdom government concept, the concept of democracy is the best form of government invented by mankind and serves to protect him from his own defective nature and character. However, despite the fact that democracy is the best civil form of governing in our stressful world of demigods, democracy itself is plagued with defects that leave it wanting. The fundamental problem of democracy is its very foundation: power and authority by majority vote. Democracy is the best form of civil government as we know it because of its basic tenets and because of the checks and balances of the system. It is also built on the premise and principle of the majority rule and the protection of individual rights. Democracy has served our nations well in that it has given voice to the people and provides opportunity for broad-based participation in the political process by the people of a nation. Its checks and balances system further protects the masses from monopolization of power by one or by the few. Despite its advantages and benefits, however, democracy does come with a few crucial defects. One such defect is its fundamental and major principle of majority rule. This defect is critical because even though it gives power to the majority of the people, at the same time it places morality, values, and the standards for law at the mercy of the majority vote, thus legitimizing the majority's values, desires, beliefs, aspirations, and preferences. If the power of democracy is in the people, then we the people become the sovereign of our lives and corporate destiny, and thus become our own providential ruler and God. This is the re-emergence and manifestation of the age-old philosophy of humanism. Humanism is simply man becoming his own measure for morality, judgment, and justice that places man at the mercy of himself. So no matter how educated man may become, he can lead himself only as far as he goes himself. The record of history and the present state of the world gives evidence that man left to himself makes a poor God. Therefore, democracy without accountability to one greater than the people is an exercise in moral roulette. Simply put, democracy without God is man's worship and elevation of himself and his own intelligence. What a tragedy! Democracy cannot succeed without God any more than communism can succeed without God. God is not subject to our politics, nor can he be. But he has created his own political system and governmental structure which, as this book will demonstrate, is far superior to all forms of earthly government. From the Creator's perspective, life is politics, and he is the essence of life. In him there is no distinction between government and spirituality. They are one and the same. The assignment given to the first man in the Garden of Eden was a political assignment given to his spirit being living in a flesh body. Therefore, in the context of the original biblical mandate, the concept of the separation of church and state or religion and government is a lofty idea that has no root in biblical logic or fact. The original biblical mandate provides no foundation for it. Everyone is religious in the sense that they bring to life their moral convictions no matter what their religious claim. We all are political and religious. There can be no separation. You cannot legislate a dichotomy between a man and his belief system. Legislation itself is the result and manifestation of a belief system and moral judgment. Therefore, democracy can succeed only where there is a clear accountability to a moral code accepted by the majority as being good, civil, and right, and which serves as the anchor and foundation for national governance. In my country, the Bahamas, that moral code is recognized constitutionally and nationally as the biblical principles of the historic Judaic-Christian faith and the God of those scriptures. This is stated within the constitutional document and provides an authoritative reference for governing within our nation. Consequently, when the majority votes and the results are in keeping with the natural laws and standards established in the biblical text, then the vote is considered legitimate. On the other hand, when the majority votes in violation of natural law and of the principles established by the biblical text, that vote or legislation becomes illegitimate. In essence, the problem with democracy, rule of the people, is that the vote of many can be the wrong vote. Another weakness of democracy is that it is not absolute. Its concepts and laws can blow like the wind. It can be easily influenced by the changing culture. Because the citizens can be so easily manipulated by a shift in the culture and by the will of people at the top, they can be induced to abandon their rights and transfer them to those who rule over them. Plato knew that eventually the rule of the people would deteriorate into the rule of the state. I predict with a great sadness that even democracy, with all of its promises and aspirations for a good, civil, and just society, will not survive as a human government. When your best is not good enough, the only alternative is to look elsewhere for something better. There is a better alternative, and that is the heart of this book.